Now we're going to install an instance of the vCenter server appliance. There are some points to keep in mind. The vSphere appliance requires at least 7 GB of disk space. Also, the appliance ships with a thin provisioned disk, about 7 gigs, and can grow to a maximum of 80 GB of disk space. You must download the vCenter appliance from https://myvmware.com. From this location. And you must download the 3 vCenter appliance files: the .ovf file, the -system disk file, and the -data disk file. -data.vmdk, -system.vmdk, and .ovf file. You can do the download manager to manually download. At this point, you might be asked to log in or register to download an evaluation version of the software. If prompted to do so, go ahead. Continue through, accept the EULA, and download the appliance. Be patient, it's over 2.3 GB in size. For expediency, we have already downloaded the vCenter appliance, and it is ready for deployment. Here are 3 files for the vCenter appliance. As you can see in this folder, the basic appliance are here, .ovf, and the -data.vmdk file, and the -system.vmdk file. We're going to return to vSphere client at this point and proceed to deploy the appliance. We go to File, Deploy OVF Template. Let the wizard start. Click Next through here. Click on Browse. And here's our OVF file. Select it and open. Click through, Next. Accept the basic defaults. In name allocation, we're going to give a name to vCenter appliance. We're going to leave this name in place as a default so we can show it on screen. You may want to give it whatever name is more appropriate for your installation. And it's going to go in this data center. And we will select one of the iSCSI devices with the most free space. This one in this case. We're going to thin provision. For a proper application or proper deployment, I very much suggest you actually do thick provision eager 0, so you actually run out the entire contents of the disk space already mapped out and zeroed in place, minimizing any kind of delays in processing. And then we click Finish, and vCenter is about to start deploying our appliance. And now that it has finally installed and deployed the template, we basically close through the dialog screen, and we can find our virtual machine right here. We're going to assign it to the physical device for higher speed. And we're going to keep the same file locations, just reassign it to a new host. We're going to change the settings. VM network. Network connected. And save. It is always a good practice to review all of your deployments every time you put in a new virtual machine, whether you're just copying the files across, or you're going to do template deployment, even if you're moving files across clusters. Always open up the settings and make sure that everything is correct, especially when it comes to network settings. Sometimes network issues can crop up and they're somehow difficult to find out because everything else seems not to be working, when the actual symptom is a or disconnected or not connected or not working network device. So we're going now to configure the vCenter appliance. Let's move this a bit to the right to get to see better. There's a name, and we're going to see basic definitions here. We're set to go and power it on. We can click power here, or we can open the console, and from the console press the play button. And the configuration in place. And now we're ready to configure. We will select the time zone. So at this place we're going to click inside, select time zone, and we're going to select the Americas, and our current location is 49, and of course we have a number of time zones. And we have America, New York. We say OK. Or 1 for yes. We figure our time zone. Now we'll configure network information. We will not configure IPv6 at this point, so we go with the default no. And we will not use the DHCP server. We're going to say no, because we're going to give it a static IP address. And then it's giving us some default IP address picked up from our DHCP server, which we're not going to use. And we're going to give it a set address. Okay, that 3.229 for this segment. Net mask is default. Gateway is going to be default for the segment. And we will use the domain for the default. As for the host name, we're going to give it a rather simple name, vCenter Appliance, and this is part of the test lab domain. No need for a proxy server. This seems to be correct. We say yes, and let the process reset itself. So we're back to the main menu, and we will now make use of a browser, open up another window, another tab, and we will point to the location of our newly installed vCenter appliance, and we're going to use the 5480 port. Secure configuration mode. And now response, it says, okay, this might be a not trusted certificate because it's self-issued. And now we will log in. Now we're going to log in as root, and the password is VMware. This is a default configuration that comes from the template. We view through the EULA. No, I cannot read this fast, just usually go through the very bottom of it and then accept. So again, we looked at the following. We're able to connect to HTTPS for a secure connection, 192.168.3.229. Obviously port is 5480. We logged in. The default login information is root with password VMware. We accept the ULA, and then we'll verify that vCenter server status tells us the service status stopped, and currently the database type is not configured. We will check network status. And everything seems to be okay. We will check authentication. And we will join the domain. Ready? We click on the Active Directory tab. We give the domain. It's going to be testlab.com. Register user account. Okay. The process seems to have worked without a problem. We're connected now to the Active Directory. Now we go to vCenter server, database. We're going to leave the embedded database as is. We're going to test settings. Correct. We're going to save the settings. Wonderful. Schema version in place. Now we go to the System tab, Major tab, and at this point we're going to reboot the system. Reboot. We'll switch to console view to see the reboot process in place. So we're rebooting. We will soon see the database starting. We see VPXC running. The inventory service about to load all the items in inventory, and we should be able at this point to log in. We may have to wait just a teeny bit. We do not need to accept the EULA again, currently it's accepted. We check the status for vCenter server. Verify that it is indeed running. Database type is embedded. And at this point we will open another instance of the vCenter vSphere client, and we will map to the new location. We'll use root and VMware as default passwords. And it is connecting, loading inventory, discovering plugins. We have evaluation license for 60 days. And at this point we're ready to run. Here's vCenter application. We can create a new data center. We're going to call it data center 1. And in it we can create a host directly, or we can add a folder. Within the folder create a cluster, call it cluster. Basic cluster, nothing particular, and now it is ready to run. So these are the basic information items we can put in here. However, more importantly, within the vCenter, go to the Permissions tab, so in Permissions, right click, add permission, change assign role to administrator level, add a user, administrator from the domain test lab. Click on add, click OK. And here is your administrator for the domain with this level of rights. Now we can actually log out of this vCenter connection, log back in with my default credentials. At this point they're those of administrator. Six of one, half dozen of the other. Somehow I did not like the connection originally. Did take it as the actual username. So, as we were doing before, at this point we can just continue with the process of populating our system, adding a host, adding virtual machines, creating more clusters, creating virtual apps, vApps, setting up your hosts and setting up your virtual machines as necessary. So this is a particularly functional system. It has a limitation as to the amount of resources you can hold, you can manage together satisfactorily. But at this point I would say easily between 5 to 7 hosts, easily 5, up to 10 hosts at the most, and you're looking between 50 to 100 virtual machines, most likely 50. If you want to add more resources, you might be able to. However, at this point it would probably be necessary to move up from the demonstration version, from the proof of concept version that we have on the vCenter Appliance, and move on to a properly configured larger virtual machine that can handle a lot more than this machine would. So, as we have seen, the vCenter Appliance is a ready-to-run vCenter machine with little needed to configure and quite capable of working in a domain environment. And of course, it costs very little as far as server OS licensing fees. Next, we look at VMware Data Recovery, the backup appliance.